I cordially welcome you all to TechBharat 2021, Empowering EduTech and HealthTech. TechBharat is an initiative of Laghu Udyog Bharati, Karnataka, and IMS Foundation. TechBharat is envisioned as a platform to support startups and SMEs and be a guiding light to them in navigating their entrepreneurial journey. We are lucky to have found support from the Government of India at every stage, and we thank the ministers, officials, and representatives of Department of Education, Department of Health and Family Welfare, Department of Science and Technology, AICTE, and CSIR in encouraging us and supporting this vision. We welcome you to this session on education in India after NEP 2020. In the words of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, national education policy will sow the seeds for starting a new era and will give a new direction to 21st century India. India aspires to take its place beside the United States and China as the third largest economy by 2030. In the same period in which this policy will bring about the biggest transformation. By 2030, we will be the third largest economy at over 10 trillion. It will be a totally different environment. Ecosystems force us to think differently, and achieving this milestone will have ramifications all across the country. Are we ready to take our place beside USA and China as the top three largest economies in the world and be confident of sustaining it in the following years? To do this, we will need a knowledge society based on a robust education system with all the requisite attributes and characteristics in the context of changes in knowledge demands, technology, and the way in which society lives and works. For this session, we have with us Dr. O.V. Nandimat, who will be the moderator also. We welcome you, sir. He is a
Thank you.
professor of law and registrar, chair professor at HAL Defense Public Sector Undertakings, Business Law. He is a former registrar at NLSIU, Bangalore. He is the coordinator of the Center for Environmental Education, Research and Advocacy at the Law School. We welcome you, sir, and we are excited to have you here.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Omkar Marathe with us today. He is the additional Person Secretary to Minister of Education, Government of India. Sir, it's an honor to have you with us today. We welcome you to the session.
Thank you, sir.
The other panel members, Dr. Chandrasekhar Buddha and Mr. Mukul Kanitkarji, we welcome them also. I now request Dr. O.V. Nandimat to take over the session and moderate it. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your nice words. I would probably say I could not have been privileged than to hear three lined up personalities. One is Shri Mukul Kanetkarji, who would be joining us late as it is already being informed. Chandrasekhar Buddha, who is a Chief Coordinating Officer of AICTE, and Sri Omkar Marathe, who has already joined us. I have the great privilege in introducing Sri Omkar Ji Marathe for you little more elaborately. He is a civil service officer joining, starting his professional career from 2008, and he was having a very active, what you call a student days, and he himself is an IITian. Currently, Omkar Maratheji is serving as additional, PS to the Minister of Education. We could not have had a better personality than him, who could actually tell us something as to the kind of transformation that is about to storm the entire sector of education in India. Well, I just don't want to really, say anything as a formality because much is being discussed today with regard to, NEP or National Education Policy 2020. It is the initiative which was started while ago, and we have a final product in the shape of NEP 2020, and it has come into existence after the last policy that was in the year 1986. As it was rightly, said by my predecessor, we are going to really see the entire education sector, the way we are going to learn, the way we are going to develop, is going to change, in a flash. And what is that terrain is going to be, and how the education in India going to emerge, and right now what kind of initiative we have in India. I would now, with this very brief kind of an introduction, request Dr. Omkar Marathe Saab to give his viewpoints so that we can proceed further. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Nandimat sir. Uh, as we all know, new education policy has next 20 years in mind of our country. So the kind of volume and the kind of accessibility that the education requires have to be inbuilt into the our system. Uh, New education policy has tried to cover uh, the age group starting from, we can say, even, I mean, 0 up to 18 as far as school education is concerned, and beyond that, for as far as higher education is concerned. Uh, so in both these categories, the way, I mean, we have to build our next generation. In that, teacher is a most important uh, key role player, and that's why, for example, one of the main uh, aspect that is coming into is how to have a good teachers. It is going to be through a better training of to be teachers, which is proposed to be in the form of an integrated teacher training. Like, as on today, the one who is not able to get into any other professional career may be ending up into a teacher training also. So instead of that, trying to attract the bright minds towards teaching profession is an important aspect of it. So an integrated B.Ed, for example, which will start after plus two also, is also in the pipeline. Accordingly, even focusing on foundational aspects of the school education, where we as a country have seen that there are weaknesses in our system in terms of foundational literacy and numeracy, are also going to be emphasized through this teacher training, for which also uh, particular emphasis for say age group from 3 to 8, where children will be from, say, nursery to class 2, would be given, where learning through the pedagogy is thought to be on the lines that students have a capacity to learn. The traditional emphasis has been that a child is an empty or a clean slate, but now it is been visualized that each individuality has a potential to uncover itself, its own mind, and learn the things. So learning how to learn is going to be the focus of new education policy, or to train the young minds to be good, better learners. So accordingly, teacher also has to be trained that way. So these are the aspects, like in this foundational stage, learning through activities, learning through stories, learning through games, learning through interactive aspect. Like, for example, I was reading an example how traditionally an English is being taught to us. So a teacher would say, "This is a pen," and she will show a pen. But sometimes this is not actually we converse in a real life situation. So how we converse actually in real life situation, that aspect needs to be brought into as a language learning. That, I mean, if education is closer to the real life situations, then education can be a better contributor to the overall life of a child. So there are some fundamental aspects of on which aims of education. Why education? So we know, we start with, I mean, education to know, or learn how to know, learn to know is education. Then it is learn to do. So that is very important aspect, whether lagudyog for that matter, and in the area of employment particularly. So this needs to give us an emphasis that if we see the picture of our economy, maybe 80% of the people will have to be self-employed. It is not that uh, I mean everybody will get a job. So that mindset also has to be brought into in the education system. So, and that confidence will be developed by learning by doing, as we reflect in his originality in his life, his or her life. So that learning to be, and so for that he has to be confident. So developing a confidence of a being is also an important aspect, for which a variety of supporting role, like uh, as far as teacher is concerned, it is said that a teacher needs to support a person, and teacher also needs to shape a person. The typical example that is given is of a potter. Potter, when on his wheel, is shaping a pot from a wet soil. He supports the pot being constructed from inside, and shapes the pot from the outside. So supporting and shaping is both is required for a teacher to be a good teacher. So after learning to be, what is the purpose of that? So one of the major aspects of a purpose, which is reflected in the fourth theme of education, is learning to live together. So for a society to learn live together is also a very important aspect. So it in a way covers uh, as far as physical knowledge is concerned, physical life, or we can say, and it ends at a social living of a person. So from a personal point of view up to a global point of view, local point of view to a global point of view, all these dimensions are there in the learning. And in this, I think small scale entrepreneurs have a lot of roles about which we can speak now onwards. What are the variety of roles entrepreneurs can have, because entrepreneurship has a very important role in coming developing this new education sector in a new way. So I think I would briefly stop on this point, and we can move ahead.
Yeah. Sir, thank you very much. There are three very important, what you call as points, which you have mentioned. That this particular policy, what you are talking or what we are currently interested in, is a long vision it has in mind. It is not thinking of few years, it is thinking of the decades to come, if not centuries to come. And second one is it spans from what I would say LKG, that is KG to PG to postdoctoral. So it actually emphasizes, as I understand this particular policy, lifelong learning process so that one can unleash his inner potential. And that you explained very beautifully by taking the example of a potter. So it is basically to transform an individual in its overall sense or in his overall sense. That is what this education policy looks at, and it is no doubt a very very ambitious policy. But I am
Yes,
really inquisitive to know the initiatives of government of India, which actually allows this particular policy to become the actuality or reality. Because one very interesting exercise which we did together as law professors was to understand how earlier policy initiatives were implemented,
true.
not to criticize anyone, but we could not able to see that kind of a visible change as far as actuality is concerned. Policy said something, actuality continued as it was earlier. Just to, if you allow me only 1 minute, sir, I would not like to actually take a lot of time, but I'm just trying to think along with you. See, one of the first
True.
few documents that were produced in India, although we did not count it as education policy, was the Radhakrishnan Committee report. That is, soon after we attained independence, it was to look at the working of the Indian universities. Whatever they find there as their findings continue to be the reality as far as our most of the universities are concerned, barring few exceptions, whom we call as islands of excellence. So I just would like to know your viewpoints as to how government is actually encouraging people to implement the new education policy. That, according to me, is greater insight you can bring into.
Sure. Uh, like sir, you referred Dr. Radhakrishnan committee. It was probably the first commission in the
Yeah.
independent India, which even before our constitution came into being,
Yeah.
I mean, that was the kind of priority that was bestowed at that point of time also by the government of then. So that way, education is the most important sector. In Hindi, they say मतलब रक्षा से ज्यादा भी शिक्षा महत्वपूर्ण है. So in that sense, uh, uh, मतलब education is a most crucial thing, but it is not very I mean fast process that you can transform thing by bringing, say in defense you can bring a big technology like Rafale and you boost your capacity uh, double folded. Education is a definitely a step by step process, and I mean one has to agree that whatever are stated in the policy is not gets completely transformed into reality. Uh, there are, I mean, in a way, practical difficulties, and most importantly, which every one of us would agree that we always have some problems as far as implementation is concerned. So, uh, in implementation, I mean, as far as policy is concerned, it is making the work of a head, and actual who is implementing is doing the work of hand. But for connecting head and hand, probably we also need to have our heart into it. So
Correct.
that aspect many a times becomes what I would say diluted in different organs of the government. If it goes up to the state level, it goes up to the various dimensions like within school education, within board, within higher education, general education, technical education, all those aspects. So and each one has needs a detailed thinking. Somehow over a period of time it has evolved that if you provide autonomy, then probably institutions also evolve in a much better way. So autonomy is a very important principle as far as the educational system is concerned, but still a government's handholding is required. So in that tightrope, I mean all implementations, because ultimately it is educationists who have to who run the system, and so uh, when educationist teacher is the key player or a central at implementation of every policy. So how much say government is able to, or a system as such I would say, is able to take the policy vision, policy spirit up to the teacher would reflect the success of the policy. For example, I mean, if we have to talk about the present initiatives, as I just spoke, integrated B.Ed program is one of the
Yeah.
key initiative. Beyond that, ultimately we have to emphasize that I mean, learning is a process uh, of what I could say that is the youth age, is the age where a person can give his maximum spirit. It is the age where that age is not having any vested interests, so as to see. So it has a basic intention to learn. So how
So,
much teachers is able to enable that learning, like and maybe it is through satisfying the curiosity of the children, how the way teacher gives inputs to students, the way teacher promotes research uh, approach of students. Like for example, in higher education, uh, I mean, for example, University Grant Commission has listed journals and tried to weed out the journals which have not been in a way healthy for as far as the research publications have been concerned. That few years back, our main program has been, our main product has been to deliver undergraduate graduates to the society. But over a period of time, we have to learn that higher education has an important dimension which globally we in a way have lagged behind as far as research is concerned. Uh, as far as cutting edge areas are concerned, though we have strides in various upcoming sectors, in spite of that, For example, the number of patents that we are having is less. So all these concerns uh, have to be addressed by the governing system, and these issues have been identified to be addressed, and so these areas are now being emphasized upon, like multidisciplinary in approach. As I realized just now, sir, that you have environmental
Correct.
education as one of the important sector. So in that, social sciences as well as natural sciences, their integrative data analytics, where lot of data can be linked together and analyzed. So all these new things in academics are coming. Every field is now getting emphasized by or getting influenced by data sciences. So all these new things will definitely lead to further innovation, and as such, government is concerned about it. As far as uh, what I would say, small scale entrepreneurs are concerned, uh, they have also been through the same education system. Yet, I would say, or as such, I would say that it is kind of developing confidence of students, for which what kind of inputs are required, because they themselves are have ventured into entrepreneurship through their own confidence. So such entrepreneurs need to uh, think of various solutions or various demands that this policy in a way generates, and try to bridge those demands through uh, some either services or products from their side. So there is a scope for all sectors. It is not just the government which or not. For example, though the teacher is a thing, there are a lot of inputs that this teacher needs to be given so that this policy is brought into a fruitful fruition. So that is
A very, very
that.
comprehensive sort of an answer, sir.
Yeah.
Continuing our conversation a little further,
Sure.
sir, you emphasized upon, in our race to provide access to education, especially higher education, somewhere we have forgotten about the quality. School level or higher education level, or be it at the time of learning, be it at the time of research and things like that. The two integral components of education are teacher and a taught. That is, teacher and a student, right, sir?
Yes.
So, if you really take a student today, a contemporary student today, he is constantly learning and updating himself from other sources. But when he comes to the classroom or he comes to the formal learning sessions, he find the learning that is happening is quite pale and colorless. It is because our teachers are not equipped to catch their attention and deliver at the required level. That is where you also said the B.Ed and things like the integrated B.Ed. You are also talking of building the capacity of the teachers.
Yes.
But not only building the capacity of the teachers, there has to be some kind of more innovation that is required to be done. You require to bring new teachers? Yes, you are doing that. But how you are planning to handhold the teachers who are already there into the system? What is that has been, because I
Sure.
personally think, especially trying to understand about the new education policy, and especially the kind of platform where we are speaking to, encourage small entrepreneurs. See, the teachers, whatever the kind of insight they develop or, learning they have, it must not be allowed to be shared with the students alone. It should go beyond the classroom. So, what exactly can be done, sir? So that whatever kind of a research and development that happens in university or happens in higher, places of learning, it can go into the society.
Uh, as far as quality is concerned, and as far as how to we can enable teacher to bring that quality.
So,
There are various designs within education system. I will try to enumerate two, three.
so,
One is called professional learning community. So, like in each school, for example, there are five teachers. Probably learns that thing more better than when he learned himself. So, as a teacher also keep on learning, and they keep on also get to know new ways to teach a standard concept. So that way they can evolve. With exchange with each other, how
sir.
to teach any particular area better. Uh, like for example, let me talk about law. If a uh, professor is teaching constitution in the class, and if he's teaching what is basic structure of the constitution, I mean, there are various ways. It has such a vast, I mean, jurisdiction. Starting with the say this Subramaniam Bharati case, and uh, maybe I'm wrongly quoting it, Keshavanand Bharati case,
Keshavanand Bharati
Keshavanand
versus.
Bharati case. So how then code itself gave a preamble as the hint. Then there can be questions also. If you have say various new things which have come into preamble, are all they also part of the basic structure? A teacher can give a hint and even quote judgments to teach how uh, if teachers exchange with each other, the concept I was emphasizing on professional learning community. So even law teachers among themselves can discuss and uh, tell the way how a state has evolved. For example, I remember one concept of a teacher, like why we have legislature, executive, and judiciary separately. So the way he taught us is that a government should not become a predominant whole some person. So we divide the power within state itself, so that which organ of the state has control over the other, and that's why these powers are divided. So if you state that divide the state, then people are able to be sovereign in real sense. So that's how he taught us, and we understood it better. So similarly, through exchange among teachers, a teacher can learn things. There are new ways in which a teacher can learn about various concepts. So that is what I call a professional learning community. Typically, teachers are not. We need to promote among teachers this way. And head of school, as I come to the second example, it is head of school or a principal or a director who has a very key role to play, or even within that discipline, that a senior most among that discipline group. Say among the all law professors, the senior most 2 3 people have to take initiative so as to build up our team of and have professional learning community. Second example I came as far as handholding is concerned. In a teacher or educational system, handholding is very important. So I remember having devised a system of inspection of schools or inspection of colleges, in which rather than somebody coming from outside and giving once in a year some report about feedback about review of how that school is working, if say head of school, which is principal, instead of he conducting his own classes, which normally is not able to do because he has a lot of administrative work, but he can at least observe one classroom being conducted say every day for 5 days in a week, and give after the class to the teacher the feedback after listening to the students feedback also, maybe not in front of teacher. So and there is we had developed a standard format which each head of school has to fill up online. We had 1000 government schools under our administration, and through that we were average getting 1000 forms filled up by head of schools. So that was a very big data. So through that big data, now you can even do data analytics to even identify what we call in uh, artificial intelligence fraud analytics, for example. Because even head of school would become that a system is telling me to fill up the form, so let me do it. But he will do it as a tick mark activity. So who is doing actually it as a casually, who is doing it seriously? That also we can analyze based on the pattern of data that they are filling up. And we can even counsel head of school that it is a very important activity. It is for you head of school as a to develop your team and take your team along for improving the actual teaching learning process. So there were various standard uh, one page format. We had created some 30 questions through which principal will daily evaluate, and this would also be a performance indicator of a teacher. So it is being told to the teacher uh, in person only. It is not that it is. So teacher also feels that when somebody is observing me and somebody is giving me constructive feedback. So that way also quality of education can be improved.
I am getting personally benefited by what you are saying because I take you just not as Mr. Omkar Marathi say. There are three dimensions of law which you should really take with you to the classroom. Those three dimensions, I call it as a 3D study of law, that is my coinage. The first dimension is law in text. That is, you read the constitutional provision and tell them, which they themselves would have studied, and it is very easy for them to study. The second dimension is law in context. The constitution was drafted in the year 1950, or prior to that, it was drafted and brought into force in 1950.
Yes.
Sociological, political, and even the externalities have changed today. We are in a post-globalized world. So, how do we require to read those provisions which were drafted prior to globalization? See, that is contextualization. And the third one is, I say, after law in text, law in context, I say law in action. That is where you try to relate what they study in the classroom to what is happening in the real world. Here, technology has got, because you being an IITian, whatever you try to invent, whatever you try to learn in a classroom, you use it to solve some of the human problems or human challenges in a technological way. But in social sciences, we have tremendous responsibility of trying to analyze the social changes that are happening and try to give a recipe. This is what you call as action research or policy research. For that, I personally feel, Omkar Saab, the teacher should be in a limited manner exposed to real life. Otherwise, what happens? He cocoons himself. Now, let me tell you what is happening in my own field. Although you are new in education policy, medicine and law are kept out, I don't understand why they should have been kept out. That is a different matter. That is my personal viewpoint. See, a teacher of law today, according to the Bar Council regulation, is not allowed to practice. Actually keeps himself engaged with the real world is going to make tremendous amount of a change. I
Certainly.
hope you are getting my point. Even
I
see, sir,
can't agree more on
that is
this.
why, you are on bang. You are talking about that.
Yes.
So, being a government, I personally feel you need to create that kind of, let us say, medium, right? And that fear, saying that, oh, if you expose the teacher, then he would beat everybody and that would be lost to an educational institution, should go away from our minds. See, that is one very important thing I am trying to say, sir. And the
Certainly.
second very important point I keep, whenever we get the opportunity, Omkar Saab, you touched upon that very well. See, when I studied law, I'm just taking law as an example, it can be taken as a token example. When I studied law, we were not at all, we were totally closed economy, well regulated economy in different sense, like MRTP. It was license raj which was prevalent. When I started teaching, we slowly started opening up. And when I actually opened my eyes as a high teacher with some amount of an experience, we had actually opened our doors. Now we are in a post globalized world.
Yes.
That is where you are talking of Atmanirbhar Bharat and things like that as initiatives of the government. If I don't align my teaching with the national, what you call as a aim of becoming Atmanirbhar, right? I am not actually delivering my goods in the classroom. That is, in fact, what you are attempting to say, Omkar Saab. That is
Mhm.
why I'm saying exposing the teacher in a regulated manner to real world should be the goal of, what you call as enablers. That enablers, I would
Yeah.
say, state agencies, be it UGC, be it AICT, or
And a medical college are run together where a teacher is also a practitioner in the medical hospital.
correct.
Similarly, in technical education in engineering, could have been an ideal situation where a engineering college and an industry are being run together. Where
Yes.
uh, similarly in law, I mean, moot courts are the only way where this exposure is being done. But I mean, enabling students to practice real life cases also can be a good way to start. And even as far as a teacher, why he can't be a practitioner is also an important aspect to be dealt with. Uh, as far as like in new education policy is concerned, there is one provision of a school bagless 10 days in a year for class from 6 to 8 in the new education policy, which is in a way an initiation of a or introduction of a vocational education at the very early stage, with the government having a target of 50% of the vocationalization of school education itself in next 5 or 10 years or so. So that is an ambitious target in which bringing and this policy in a way envisages that there will not be any compartmentalization, that is, this is an academic stream and this is a vocational
Correct.
stream,
Yes,
this
yes.
is curricular and this is extracurricular. So all these aspects are going to be brought together, and so that is going to be definitely a challenge as far as how to develop content for a school education or in a higher education also. And I think here entrepreneurs have a lot of scope for visualization of different services and products that will come up with. Like sir, I remember one example of a content developer who through multimedia was trying to develop a tool how you can explain various concepts in dentistry. So how teeth develop. So for developing of teeth, he had to explain the whole uh, cranium of a human being starting from birth. So in our head skeleton, there are some 30 plus bones when a child is born, and there are no teeth. But how whenever so there is a lot of modification in this fascio cranial skeleton. Period of age, a child is 0 year days old, 6 month, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, like that up to even higher ages. Whenever and so when your teeth start to develop, your some facial bones even contract in their shape. It is not just growth. So that
Mhm.
development can be shown in that over a period of time how the situation changes. And even in that multimedia tool you can show it in 3D, show in half section, show in, you can select 2 3 bones only and show how they change in their shapes and sizes over a period of time, how teeth develop, what are the roots of teeth, so how they are supplied nutrients, all these things. Then through selecting various so it was in a way considering body as a machine, but still it was a very good learning tool as far as concerned. And that person has developed various, almost 30 levels, he said, that through which a teacher can teach it as a tool by showing the developments and effectively. So for a training of a doctor, for example, it would be a very fantastic tool to use. And uh, where that person, he said that I had actual taken a real life human skeleton to first develop a model of it, its exact proportions and data. So he already used a lot of data to develop that, and that uh, model ultimately can also be a very powerful tool for actual evolving further solutions also. So that way learning goes hand in hand with research, or can go with research also if such tools are developed. So it is not just in engineering but in medical also such kind of tools can be developed. And probably even in law, I would say, it is a state as a system where there are different components, how they interact with each other, what are the boundary conditions, or like uh, freedom of expression, what are the provisos. So all these things can be mathematized for say computer programming for multimedia thing, and through which a law also can be taught. So
Correct.
that way various such tools can evolve if vocationalization is emphasized in such way. Vocationally doesn't mean just a work by hand, any work which is ultimately related to world of work through which some professional scope is possible. So that way, definitely, learning, I mean, education needs to be transformed, and in which such spirited people who have passion in education, and with guide like educationists who are like you, who have been working in this field, can definitely become a very good team as far as uh, transformation of education is concerned. Technology, in a way, and this, I would say, last 1 year of Corona pandemic has given us a clear indication of what lies in our future. So, in that context, like students, children in each of our homes have started attending classes online. Uh, Teachers are also using the tools the way they are available. Parallelly, a corporate is also there, like who are providing educational services at your home on payment basis, which also are becoming popular because of their various utilities. Uh, I just remember one example of one innovation that is in place. It certainly requires lot of data, which already a person, I mean, that initiative has. But for example, all those things which we can teach in classroom, can we try to teach all those things even in online mode? That is the
Mm,
challenge that is being explored on. Like for example, in case of vocational education, is it really possible to teach all these things online? I mean, that question has been explored since last 10 20 years as such. And some people even claim that up to at least 70% training, it is a very ballpark figure, that training can be given online, or as far as even vocational education is concerned, it can vary from stream to stream. That is another aspect of it. But for example, if it is related to I mean, where tools, I mean, rather than understanding of the exact design is concerned, sir, of mobile repairing, you can
mm,
definitely show it in more picturesque manner, along with real life, real component along with together, and train it. Talking about, can I mean, one person has made an experiment, has claimed that, say, even empathy can be taught, or emotional intelligence can be taught through online mode, or through uh, so because you can give the data was he was having is that you enter your location in the world wherever you want to be, you choose your age, and then project it based on the realist whatever the real life data that he's having, how you will pan out in your future life. Like example, a student chose that he was born in Syria uh, during the civil war time, and he remained there next 10 years. What happened to him? So that gives one situation, because of the nature of violence in that region. And if he has migrated to, say, Europe, then he has a different kind of future. So that, I mean, that is very crude example, but it gives an idea of to a person uh, about
but yeah,
uh, I mean, what are the key factors in society where a person can uh, have a smooth life? I think Chandrasekhar Buddha sir has joined,
yeah.
so he can.
No, sir, it is quite, what you call as elaborate kind of explanation, which certainly helps. Thank you very much. While we both, get the opportunity to interact a little more, I would take this opportunity to welcome Chandrasekhar Buddhaji, who is a Chief Coordinating Officer of AICTE, one of the higher education or technical education regulator in the country right now. Sir, without any ado, can I just request you to make your brief presentation so that we do have some two or three very important or critical questions for you, sir? Yes.
We have recently come up with the National Education Policy 2020. Education is this is about creating a knowledge-based societies. Entire globe used to come towards our Nalanda and Takshashila, and they used to learn, and then they used to acquire the knowledge. and then they created the subsets of such kind of a knowledge based societies in various countries. That's the reason people used to call, the India is a Vishwa Guru. First we need to fix, or we need to change the thought process of our entire education system itself. Because here what was happening till now, we are creating millions of workers, but we don't want not only to create a millions of workers, we want to create entrepreneurs, we want to create a researchers, we want to create a innovators, we want to create a sufficient entrepreneur. So the resultant was a National Education Policy 2020. So basically, it is a very simple. If you ask me, you don't need to read all 650 pages. It's like we have gone through the requirement of the industries, understand the requirements of the industry 4.0. I mean the latest technologies. We interviewed them and asked them what kind of and we have collected all that information, and with help of advanced technologies we changed all our policies now and enable. And as of now, if you ask me, we are not a technology policy making company. We are a high tech global high tech companies, who play with the advanced technologies, understand requirements, understand what is upskilling, understands the entire global requirements per se, and how to upskill our students for their better future. So the in a one liner, the new education policy is nothing but understanding the requirement of industry and use with the help of advanced technologies, enabling our educational policies to upskill the students for their better future. That's what it is all about. And then we slowly started working, each and every element of it. So first you take the school education. I mean, very, very important. As I mentioned earlier, we want to do the change, from the ground level. So I'm sure you all agree that in older national education policy, lots of syllabus, lot of homework, and that grading system, I mean, creating a depression, and our students are feeling disconnected. They started working on isolated mode, and there is one standardized testing to determine everything. I think, this is not the way we supposed to be, and this is not the way you supposed to, have a educational policy in our country. So now we come up with a new, a meaningful, critical thinking oriented, experimental, application based, and flexibility in learning. Let them learn when they want to learn, and focusing on life skills and multidisciplinary and continuous review system. So the new education policy not only implements what is already there, and it has a feedback mechanism so that you can feed the information, and we find it fine tunes. So the national education policy is agile in nature. So that's the beauty of this national education policy, and everyone started appreciating across the world. Everyone is inquiring about it. Because see, as I already mentioned, once we were a Vishwaguru, now with the help of this new national education policy, we are going to transform, we are going to empower, we are going to lead this world. So the coming back to the school education side, what we strongly feel is, we are only enabling one side of the brain now, but now we have taken a decision with help of national education policy. We want to empower the student brain on the both the sides. So one is developing curiosity, logical thinking, problem solving, arts. Change the color. When you woke up, you see one color. Based on that color, your thought process will reflect. I mean, we want to connect with nature. And along with that, another interesting study happened was our students are working isolated. So they became isolated individuals, not as a team players. So we want to create the teamwork, collaborative working. I mean, gamification is the future. So we need to take things forward and make them ready for the entire world so that they can win the world. And ethics is another, entity which we have based learning, gamification, and we even added the scientific temper. I mean, let them think out of the box. I mean, if they fail, it's fine. I mean, it's okay. There is no such issue. Let them fail, but let them understand. Let them try out. Let them think out of the box. Let them innovate. Let them at least fail, so that they will figure out how to succeed. And most importantly, we started engage them in a vocational training. So what happens along with the basic education knowledge? They will get a real-time opportunity. Let them go and take that vocational, so that they will have that respect on them and they will learn, and that's going to be a life learning skill. And along with that, coding. I mean, lot of people come back to us and saying, well, you want the sixth standard student to code. No, coding is not about only the coding, where you write your C++ and various advanced artificial intelligence and big data language. No, the thought process here is the coding is a wonderful mix of art, imagination. It improves your imagination. It improves your reasoning. It improves your, out of the box thinking. I think, amazing thing is combination is nothing but a coding. So we have incorporated, one is on the real time experience on the vocational training. On the other side is a pure coding and advanced level, information processing devices, basically, like IoTs and various other applications. The thought process, let our students win this world. And another beautiful thing what we did in school education is, the existing infrastructure doesn't have this first pre 3 years foundational stage. So we have added that foundational stage, because what is happening in the cities, the mothers, they are sending their kids at the age of 3 years to something called play homes, right? So they go there and play schools they attend, and they are getting some kind of a mingling with others. And but the village side, as well as in tribal areas, that kind of opportunities are not available. So we go outside to the sun, and they have a lot of physical activities, and then slowly the rest of the process comes in. So the beauty of this education policy, it's not about policy at all. It's about fine tuning and giving the best of the best future to our. So as you already know, there is a multidisciplinary education system and holistic and flexibility of subjects. Because when I'm doing my engineering, I always feel that I want to do something towards social studies, I mean history. I'm very much interested, but I never got an opportunity. Now they get an opportunity. If someone is interested in music, let them learn music. Why should we stop someone for learning? So the flexibility of subjects and multiple entry, multiple exit. I mean, amazing opportunities on this. Imagine someone is got stuck up because of their financial issue, or there is some health issue. They can gracefully exit, and they can gracefully enter back to the educational system. That's another amazing thing what we are doing. And then lot of research oriented incentive, teacher incentive, and lots of there's something called Meru. And if you do it in 1 year, you will get a certificate. 2 years advanced diploma, 3 years bachelor's degree, 4 years bachelor's degree with research. I mean, lots of changes are going to come in the entire educational system. And this is my favorite slide, as I'm a technologist. So I always focus more on this slide. So we are enabling this entire educational system using the advanced technologies. I'm sure the same thing, and understand the same thing in local language. We want to empower them. We want to give those opportunities to them. And along with that, videos and translated format, we are coming with audio files, interactive PDFs, AR, VR based learning, 3D based approaches, lots of simulations using advanced artificial intelligence, technologies, blockchain, data driven. I mean, and doing lots of live streaming. And we have come up with 34 DTH channels. Example, any student can go online and they can search for chemistry MHRA DTH channel. You will get it. I mean, you can say social studies MHRA DTH channel. You will get that channel immediately. It's free. I mean, we put up all those things in one place, and started doing online assessment, lots of interactive classrooms. I mean, there's lots of things are going on in this new India, and we want to empower. And at the same time, as you know, professional education is another area which where we are concentrating. And in Indian government in last 5 years, they have invested more than 111 lakh crore in form of 6,781 for free of cost to all sectors of people. And not only from the technical and engineering side, we are concentrating on healthcare education, we are concentrating on BFSI, we are concentrating on renewable energy. agriculture and education. I mean, lots of things are going on, and we are running very fast and wants to make sure we give a better and the best to our students. Along, I'm sure you have seen lots of gamification, neurosciences, genomic studies, biotechnologies, 3D, AI, I mean, and environment related. So all these are getting empowered and, giving this entire content to them. So as I already mentioned earlier, the thought process, the outcome is not to teach, to transform, not to educate, to empower them, not to just to learn, to lead. Let our students lead. So as I'm sure you all know about the pillars like access, quality, quantity, affordability, and accountability. So I don't want to go through all the 650 pages. I just want to put things in a very simple and straight prospect so that you understand and you explain this to others. So if you have any questions, you feel free to ask me. I'm happy. I will try my best to answer.
So we do have a few questions. Uh, I mean, national education policy is a path-breaking policy, and it definitely will bring in a new era in the education system that is there in the country. But I would like to know on the implementation part, what is your thoughts about that? How best can we implement NEP so that its spirit and budget for education
On a
uh,
state level.
on a state, yeah. At this time, how do you think will the implementation go ahead, sir? Thank you.
See, first, for the central government point of view, we have enough funds to execute this project, and I see we are creating along with the master plans, we are creating a subset of plans. Financial planning, implementation planning, and coordination with states. Because states only from state as well as central, we are giving opportunity of external commercial borrowing so that the institutes and schools can get external commercial borrowings from foreign agencies or foreign investors or from foreign universities to establish the center of excellences and startups within the campus itself, and they can invest the foreign entities can invest in those institutes and schools for very lesser percentage of interest. Because the minute you go for an FDI, which is an existing process, in the FDI the problem is the minimal FDI investments were like in the thousands of crores. So there the due diligence, the institutes are basically getting rejected. So now we have enabled the external commercial borrowing where the institute schools can utilize that opportunity, and they can get they can get funding for very less percentage of interest. So this is another opportunity we have given. And along with that, what I strongly believe is that the we have a vision, we have an amazing team, and now under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and our Education Minister Shri Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank ji.
So, in the near future, like the way we export software services from India, can we expect Indian institutions of national repute to think of export of educational services in the near future? What are your thoughts about that, sir?
Yes, I mean, why not? As I already mentioned, along with the best of the best students, we want to create the best of the best teachers also. I mean, see, in India, if you see now, lots of learning management systems. And recently, we have looked into one of the product. It's a Atmanirbhar Bharat live streaming product, which is almost equivalent to Zoom. I mean, see, I see that this national education policy will open up the doors for every Indian company entity to go global. Example, one of the initiative which we have started recently, that's called NEET. So in the NEET, the products which got selected under NEET, they started selling globally. Even the no one can compete with us. So maybe few countries, our neighboring countries, they can Xerox copy things, but we are the one who know how to do Zugad. We are the one who are 1.25 billion Indians, and companies can invest not only in India, they can market that in India, they can do a test bed in India, and they can take the same product and start selling it to the entire world. So this we are creating. See, this is actually, if you really ask me, I see the national education policy is one of the part of a make in India process. So here we produce in India and in Bharat and sell it to the globe. I think this is the way I see things, and I'm sure not only the educational services, we can take the all kind of a skill domains we have in the world, which can be imported and start selling from India to the entire globe. Maybe I would like to pass on to Onkarji.
Jay. As far as educational services are concerned, I believe, I mean, we are already a significant provider to the global market. I mean, our products have already gone outside in terms of industry, I mean, which are popular in software, and research. But beyond that, as far as education is concerned, uh, there is still a lot of scope, and definitely there are people who are working on these lines, particularly based on new data sciences. There is work which is going on, where I mean, India can provide educational services to the world. Beyond that, I mean, there are people who are working on creating educational content which can be universal, particularly say for school education, and even in higher education certainly. Uh, I mean, I have come across an educational service provider who provides a hand-holding consultancy as far as their leadership is concerned in terms of developing schools. So, I mean, owner can be different. Like they have helped in providing consultancy for developing the school by the owner from the Gulf country, but they have been the management consultant for the same. India's own education consultant India Limited public sector undertaking is there, which is providing consultancy not just in India but outside in a significant way. There are a lot of interactions that keep on taking place government to government basis, where our education ministry gets involved in such exchanges, where also I mean, business can be done. And beyond that, higher education certainly has a significant role, because it is not just that education has services overseas, but there are overseas students coming in India, uh, and for that also, definitely there are, uh, particularly I believe it may be in the domain of not so very small scale industries, or medium scale industries certainly are vying for any footprint outside, for various competitive examination like evaluation, conducting of examinations, like national testing agencies conducts a lot of examinations, for which a lot of even international students appear for these entrance examinations for countries in India, for whose coaching, for example, our I mean, educational services can be of very much relevance. I think there are many such points where educational services can be of international use.
Thank you, sir. So we have one last question. Uh, we are seeing more and more globalization of higher education in India, and we are anticipating campuses to be built on the cloud now. So, in this scenario, how do you see collaborations with the foreign universities? Collaboration of Indian universities and institutes with foreign universities coming in the near future. And what do you see? How do you see that taking over, sir? Can you throw some light about that?
Yeah, you see, it's not about taking over. See, it is about moving from 4G technologies to 5G technologies. Them to invest in our country, in our educational systems, and let them create a center of excellences. Let them create entrepreneurship hubs within the campuses itself, but with collaboration of our existing universities as well as institutes and schools. So what it really means is they can open up a branch, but and in the name of our own institutes, and which is good for everyone. It's a win-win situation for them as well as for us, because instead of institutes, and they can create a lots of simulations which can be shared here and can be used here. I mean, nothing wrong in it. I see that it's really good. Let it happen in that way, and knowledge must be shared and must be, utilized in a right way to empower our students.
Yes, as Chandrasekhar sir emphasized, collaboration is a very important dimension through which there are always benefits which we have to in a way leverage. Uh, in what way is definitely is a policy question which has been addressed by NEP. Like our own institutions are already having, because it helps in terms of research culture, or the way I mean those institutions look at it. Like there are some success stories internationally as far as how institutions have developed. For example, the policy of, this culture in a way we have adopted from outside, and it has helped those institutions do better, because in the young stage of as an assistant professorship, people tend to work actively and take a lot of projects, which anyway has benefited in terms of output, in terms of research in those institutions. So those kind of things we have definitely to learn, uh, uh, and we have to learn it based on our own needs. What are our needs? Based on those needs, such collaborations are have to be welcomed, and there is definitely a scope in this NEP for the same. Thank you.
तत्कर्मयन्न बन्धाय सा विद्याया विमुक्तये आयासाया परं कर्म विद्यान्याशिल्पुनैपुणम्. The rishi of Vishnu Purana defined education as one which liberates. Sa vidyaya vimuktaye. Education is that which liberates. But before that, he says tatkarmayanna bandhaya, which means action that does not bind. He calls action only that which does not bind. With cause and effect rule, every action will create a result, a phala, and that result will bind you. Your actions will bind you. And that's why human beings are to be trained to act in a way in which they do not create a result that will bind them. That is the aim of life, and which has to be achieved by education. This has been the basis of education in Bharat for thousands and thousands of years. From time immemorial, Swami Vivekananda uses a very beautiful phrase in which he says, times in which the history cannot dare to fathom. Even the history cannot dare to fathom. From those times immemorial, from the beginning of the time, in Bharat we have developed an education system which liberated every human being, irrespective of caste, religion, his cultural background, his gender, his or her gender. Everybody was given education, and this was achieved through a decentralized education system spread in all the villages. And wherever and with whatever baggage you are born, prarabdha you are carrying from last incarnation, in this birth you will get an education which will take you to the ultimate liberation. Whatever may be the bondage, education will give liberation. If poverty is the bondage, education will enable you, will empower you in such a way that you will liberate yourself from that poverty. That's why Muktakari Vidya was also Arthakari Vidya. If ignorance is the bondage, then education will enable you with such a knowledge that the darkness of ignorance will be shattered. This is how education is looked into Bharat even today. It's not past, it's a continuous present. It's a continuous present tense. It has been happening for thousands and thousands, millennia. every day while taking Sankalpa in the temple, we take a note of 192 crores of years. When we talk about Brahmane Dvitiya Parardhe, Brahmano Ahani Dvitiya Parardhe, Shweta Shi Shweta Shvetara, like that we go on to the Samvatsara, to Shukla Paksha and then Tithi, till that we come. So that whole counting of time is 192 crore years. So that kind of a history we have kept alive in continuity through our parampara. That is the beauty of education in Bharat. So what does this NEP do? One of the highlights of 2020, which otherwise has become a forgettable year. Everyone is saying this 2020 should be wiped off from the time's history because it has got virus. So almost 9 months of everybody's life have been wasted in this COVID fight. But in that dark cloud, the silver lining came when on 29th July, the central government, the cabinet of the central government approved the National Education Policy 2020. This is a paradigm shift that was long awaited. In 1947, when we got independence, it was thought that we will become independent of all the colonial bondages, but alas, it didn't happen. In Bharatiya languages, independence is called as Swatantra. Swatantra. Independence means Swa. Swa means my. Tantra means system. If our own systems, indigenous systems are not developed, the independence does not have any meaning. It is a political independence. Only the faces are changed. Now we don't have any British faces, white faces. Instead of that, we have our own Bharatiya faces, but the judges in the courtroom are following the same British laws, same British procedures. The economy is following the same thing. The democracy that we have inherited is the Westminster model. So all the political system, economic system, judicial system, we have not changed them to Swatantra. So are we really independent of the colonial? Has the decolonization even started? That was the question in the mind of everybody. And why this change of system did not happen during our making of constitution in this country. For 47 to 1950, we prepared our constitution with 350 most fertile and patriotic minds coming together and debating for hours together on each line of every article, and we created one of the historic constitution of this country. But why we have not been able to throw away the colonial bondage and become really independent is because the education system was not freed from the colonial past. The 1835 Act of Education even today ruled this country, and that was the challenge before the National Education Policy team, drafting team. For 5 years consultation were done all over the country. More than 1.25 lakh villages were visited, and by one estimation almost 32 crore people participated in the consultation process of this National Education Policy. It must be a world record for any kind of policy. This kind of a democratic process was adopted, and the nation expressed its vision of education through this all consultation. And Kasturi Ranganji, Dr. Kasturi Rangan, one of the modern rishis, I call him, really a seer, a tapasvi who has done great austerities in his own life. He guided the team, he led a team of other rishis, 10 rishis, and through all this big data that was collected through such a large consultation, This 66-page document of national education policy has emerged like a Navanita out of Manthana. This nectar that has come out of this churning, if implemented properly, I repeat, if implemented properly, this will completely change the paradigm of education and bring it back to what it was, that is Tatkarmayanda Madhyaya. Why I am saying this? Because this national education policy for the first time talks about flexibility. It talks about flexibility in governance, it talks about flexibility in syllabus and curriculum, it talks about flexibility in selection, choice of subjects, it talks about flexibility from the watertight streams like science, arts, commerce, like that. It talks about multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary education. It talks about multiple entry and multiple exit. It talks about choice based credit right from the school. So it is a completely flexible structure that has been given. So that will enable, if implemented properly, that will enable not only the student but also the teachers and free it from the colonial bondage, and the real Gurukula pedagogy, the real Gurukula methodology can be brought back through NEP, implementation of NEP. NEP is, for the first time after independence, in Bharat we are talking about a victorious nation. We are not talking about a nation which has been bogged down for thousands of years. No, we have thrown away that colonial baggage in this education policy. This education policy talks about a holistic curriculum, holistic syllabus. And in that holistic syllabus, one subject is about knowledge of Bharat. Knowledge of Bharat is one subject, in which 100 mark question paper will be given right from the school education to the post-graduation level, in which they will learn about Bharat. For the first time we are saying that we are proud of our heritage and we learn our heritage with pride. So that is a shift. Even in the chapter of internationalization, that is chapter 14 of the education policy, the policy makers while drafting are not at all apologetic. They are not talking about internationalization from a globalization point of view. They are not talking from a point of view in which Bharat is somewhere less, and with that from less pedestal we are talking to some higher universities. No. Before saying that the foreign universities, that to the top 100 foreign universities, 100 ranking foreign universities may be allowed to open their campuses in this country with proper legal framework at par with autonomous institutions of the country. Nothing special, no privileges. But before writing this, in the first half of the same sentence, they are talking about the best universities in Bharat, the best rank universities of Bharat would be allowed to open campuses all over the world. This is real internationalization. So we are talking from a position of advantage. We are not talking from a position of some inferiority. First time this Vijigishu Vritti has been shown by the Bharatiya policy makers, and that's why NEP can change the whole education, whole attitude of education in Bharat. Another very important part is about the entrepreneurship. That is most important part. So in Bharat we have been talking about, Macaulay said that I have created an education system which will create employees, clerks. So all our education system was targeted towards creating package getting employees, good employees for, and that's why the name of the ministry was also changed to HR, human resource. Human resource is a phrase from marketing side. So you wanted to create human resource for the industry. No, not like that. Now today we are talking about, let us create job givers and not the job seekers. That entrepreneurship will change the whole system. And when LUB is organizing TechBharat, it is the most important aspect for us. So it will change the whole paradigm of education. Job seeking versus job giving. We are going to create job givers. That is how I see NEP will change the whole attitude of education in Bharat in the coming years. And that's why the name is also changed back to Ministry of Education. No more Ministry of Human Resource Development. That is not just a change of name, it is a change of attitude that is happening in this national education policy. But this national education policy is going to throw away this dominance of a foreign language. If implemented properly, again I will repeat, if implemented properly in proper context by the public and the government and the teachers, this education policy after say 5 years will allow some student to become a professional, say a doctor or chartered accountant or an engineer or a lawyer, without ever taking single class of English language. From pre-primary to higher education, everywhere the option of Bharatiya language should be allowed, NEP is saying. If implemented properly, will create a nation of proud Bharatiyas working and contributing to the heritage and the goodness of the wellness of the world, really achieving Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina through their own talent. Even today, after 200 years of forcing English on everybody, only 12% of the Bharatiyas in census 2011 said that we know English. They said they know English. I don't know how many of them know English. 88% of Bharatiyas do not know English. Why do we need a higher education only in English? So creating an education in all Bharatiya language will change the whole paradigm, and Bharat Mata will once again become Jagat Guru. That is the seed and the possibility in NEP. It depends on how we implement it, not the government. It is the society, it is the teachers, it is the educationists, it is the entrepreneurs of the country, it is the industry of this country, it is the social leaders of this country that have to come together and implement NEP in its spirit and correct the Shirshasana which was done in 1835. That is education after NEP. Thank you.
With this, we come to the end of the session. I thank each one of you for taking time out in spite of your busy schedule and coming over and discussing on NEP. And I'm sure a lot of ideas discussed here, a lot of points that have been spoken about will add immense value to the audience who would be viewing this. Uh, from the entire team at Tech Bharat, a heartfelt gratitude to you, and we wish you the very best. And we thank you for joining us today. Namaste, sir.
Thank you. Namaste. Namaste, Chandrasekhar.